Chapter 8, Mishnah 1. This chapter discusses the laws of a human Bechor, a firstborn son. Two laws apply to a Bechor. He inherits a double share in his father's estate, and his father must perform Pidyon Haben, redemption from a Kohen for 5 Silaim. However, the rules for defining a Bechor are different for each of these two laws. A Bechor who inherits a double portion is a male child who is his father's firstborn, regardless of whether he is the firstborn of his mother. A Bechor whom the father must redeem, though, is a boy who is the first child born to his mother. The Torah describes him as the one who opened his mother's womb. It does not matter whether he is the firstborn of his father. See General Introduction. Since the rules regarding Bechor for inheritance and for Pidyon Haben are different, it is possible for a child to meet the criteria for one of the laws, but not for the other. The Mishnah gives examples of such cases. There is a child who is a Bechor for the laws of inheritance, but is not a Bechor for the mitzvah of redemption from a Kohen. There is a child who is a Bechor for redemption from a Kohen, but is not a Bechor for inheritance. There is a child who is a Bechor for both inheritance and redemption from a Kohen. And there is a child who is not a Bechor at all, neither for inheritance nor for redemption from a Kohen. The Mishnah gives examples of each category. It begins with the first category, a child who is a Bechor for inheritance, but not for Pidyon Haben. Most of the cases in this category are based on the following law. A child cannot be considered a Bechor for inheritance unless his father would mourn over his death. This excludes a child born dead or so premature that it cannot survive for 30 days. It is assumed that the father does not mourn such a child, and thus it is not a Bechor. In such a case, the father's next child, if a son, is the Bechor for inheritance, since that is the first child for which the father would mourn. A Bechor for Pidyon Haben, though, is a boy that is the first to be born to its mother and thus opens its mother's womb, regardless of whether the father would mourn for it. The Mishnah's first case involves twins. The first one was born dead and the second lived. Who is a Bechor for inheritance that is not a Bechor for redemption from a Kohen? He is a male child who is born after the birth of a premature baby whose head emerged from the womb while alive and then returned to the womb. This refers to twins. One is premature and the other fully developed. The premature one pushed its head out of the womb and then pulled it back in. The fully developed baby was then born. The fully developed baby is a Bechor for inheritance but not for redemption. Another example is a male child that is born after the birth of a 9-month baby, i.e. a fully developed fetus, whose head emerged from the womb after it was dead. Here, both twins are fully developed, but one died in the womb. Its head was then pushed out and pulled back in, and then the second baby was born. In both these cases, when the head of the first fetus emerged, alive or dead, it is considered a birth, and the womb is opened. Thus, the second baby was not the first to open its mother's womb, and is not a Bechor for Pidyon Haben. However, the second baby is a Bechor with regard to inheritance, because it is the first fully developed living child, and thus the first child that the father would mourn for. The Mishnah cites another example, which is the subject of a dispute. If a woman aborted a dead fetus so deformed that it resembled a domestic animal, wild animal, or bird, the next child she has, if a son, is a Bechor for inheritance. Since a father does not mourn the death of a fetus that is so deformed, the next child is the first child the father would mourn for, and thus the Bechor for inheritance. However, the deformed fetus opened the mother's womb, and thus the next child is not a Bechor for redemption. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. But the sages say a fetus is not considered to have opened the mother's womb unless it has somewhat of a human form. Therefore, this deformed fetus did not open the mother's womb. Her next child will open her womb, and if a boy, will be a Bechor for redemption as well as inheritance. Some more examples of a Bechor for inheritance but not for redemption. A woman aborted a sandal, or an amniotic sac that has no fetus inside, or an egg-shaped mass of flesh that is forming human features, or a fetus that came out in pieces. A male child that is born after any one of these is a Bechor with regard to inheritance, but not a Bechor with regard to redemption from a Kohen. In all these cases, the aborted fetus opened the womb, thus no later child will be a Bechor with regard to redemption. However, a father does not mourn over the loss of any of these fetuses. The next child will be the first child the father would mourn for, and thus, if a male, will be a Bechor for inheritance. The Mishnah gives more cases of a different sort, of a child who is a Bechor for inheritance, but not for redemption. The next case is the subject of a dispute. A man who never had children married a woman who had already given birth, and she now gave birth to a son. That son is a Bechor for inheritance, since he is the father's first child. But he is not a Bechor for redemption, since he is not the mother's first child. Even if this woman had given birth to her first child, while she was a Canaanite slave woman and she was since freed, or she had given birth to her first child while she was a non-Jew and she has since converted, if after she became a Jewess, by converting or by being freed, she gave birth to a son, that son is a Bechor for inheritance, since he is his father's first child, but he is not a Bechor for redemption from a Kohen, because he is not his mother's first child, as she had previously given birth before she was a Jewess. But Rabbi Yossi Aglili says, if a woman had a child before she became a Jewess, and then had a son afterward, the son born after she became Jewish is a Bechor both for inheritance and for redemption from a Kohen. For it is stated in the Torah's passage discussing Pidyon HaBen, that a Bechor for redemption is one who opens a womb in Israel. This teaches that a child is not considered a Bechor for redemption, unless he opens the womb of a Jewess. Children born to a woman before she is Jewish, do not count for the laws of Pidyon HaBen. The son that is the first to open her womb as a Jewess is a Bechor for Pidyon HaBen. The Mishnah moves on to the second category, a child who is a Bechor with regard to Pidyon HaBen, but not with regard to inheritance. If a man who had children married a woman who had never given birth, and she then gave birth to a son, the boy is a Bechor for Pidyon HaBen, since he is his mother's firstborn, but he is not a Bechor for inheritance, since he is not his father's firstborn. If a non-Jewish woman converted to Judaism together with her non-Jewish husband while pregnant with their first child, or a Canaanite slave woman was freed together with her husband, who is a Canaanite slave, while pregnant with their first child, if one of these women then gave birth to a son, the child is a Bechor for Pidyon HaBen, since he is his mother's firstborn. However, he is not a Bechor for inheritance, because he was conceived while his father was still a non-Jew or a slave, and such a child does not inherit his father. The Mishnah gives more cases of a Bechor with regard to Pidyon HaBen, but not with regard to inheritance. The next few cases are based on the rule, see Chapter 1, Mishnah 1, and Chapter 2, Mishnah 1, that the child of a Kohen or Levi, whether the Kohen or Levi is the father or mother, is exempt from Pidyon HaBen. The daughter of Israel and the daughter of a Kohen, each married to a different Israel, gave birth to their first sons together in the same room. Or the daughter of Israel and the daughter of a Levi gave birth to their first sons in the same room. In either case, the babies got mixed up, and we do not know which boy is the Israel's son and which is the Kohen or Levi's son. The Israel is required to give 5 silaim to a Kohen. Although he does not know which boy is his son, he is definitely the father of a Bechor, since his wife gave birth to a firstborn son. However, neither child is a Bechor for inheritance, since we do not know which boy is the son of which father. Neither son can claim any inheritance from either man. A similar case, this one involving 2 Yisrael women. A woman who had never given birth and a woman who previously gave birth. Both Yisrael women married to Yisraelim gave birth to sons, and the babies got mixed up, so we do not know which boy is the son of which woman. The husband of the woman who never had children is required to give 5 silaim to a Kohen. Although we do not know which boy is his son, we know that he is definitely the father of a Bechor, since his wife gave birth to a firstborn son. However, neither child is a Bechor for inheritance, since we do not know which boy is the son of which father. Neither son can claim any inheritance from either man. The Mishnah discusses a similar case. This case is based on the law that when a woman is divorced or widowed, she must wait 3 months before remarrying. If she gets married before 3 months pass and she bears a child right away, there will be a doubt whether the child is the son of the first or second husband. The Mishnah discusses a woman who remarried without waiting 3 months. Similarly, a woman who had never given birth, but did not wait 3 months after her husband divorced her or died before she married a second time, and she gave birth to a son 7 months into her second marriage. It is not known whether the child is a 9-month child of the first husband or a 7-month child of the second husband. Regarding redemption, the child is a Bechor, since he is the firstborn of his mother. However, he is not a Bechor for inheritance. Since we do not know which man is his father, he does not inherit either of them. The Mishnah states the law for all the cases in this category. In the above 7 cases, the firstborn child is a Bechor for redemption from a Kohen, but not a Bechor for inheritance. The Mishnah adds a law that applies to the last case, where it is not known whether the child is the son of the first or second husband. And where the child's father is unknown, even the next son born to either husband is not a Bechor for inheritance, because he might not be the firstborn. The Mishnah explains the third category, a child who is a Bechor for both Pidyon HaBen and inheritance. who is a Bechor for both inheritance and redemption from a Kohen, if a woman aborts an egg-shaped mass of flesh that is full of blood, full of water, or full of multicolored matter, or she aborts a fetus that looks like fish, locusts, shekatsim, or remasim, or she miscarries on or before the 40th day of pregnancy. In all these cases, the aborted fetus is too undeveloped to open her womb. Likewise, a father does not mourn the loss of such an undeveloped fetus. Therefore, a son born after any one of these is considered a Bechor both for inheritance and for redemption from a Kohen, if he is the first child born to his father and to his mother. Since he opens the womb and is the first child, the father would mourn for.